Hello and welcome to the Biochar Show, where the spark of innovation meets the promise of sustainability. I'm your host, Meghan K, and today we're exploring the role of biochar in climate action with Luisa Marin, Executive Director and a leader in biochar innovation. With over 25 years in environmental conservation, Luisa has spearheaded large-scale biochar initiatives, led multi-million-dollar projects, and collaborated with global organizations like the Nature Conservancy and Conservation International. We'll explore her work, the transformative impact of biochar, and how she's driving policy and funding to scale sustainable solutions. Luisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Meghan, for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. Excited.
How is life in Mexico City?
Life in Mexico City is hectic. It's beautiful. Now it's super warm. Despite the fact that we are not even in spring, it's already, I don't know in Fahrenheit, but in Celsius, we are around 30 degrees already.
It's in Vancouver, it's super sunny today, but it is probably 10 Celsius.
So no, a lot of difference.
Hopefully another month where actually all of our tulips and daffodils have popped up. So the cherry blossoms will be soon.
Spring is on its way. And in Mexico City, we have a tree called jacaranda. I don't know the name in English. It's a beautiful tree and it blossoms the last week it starts blossoming the last week of February through March. And it's beautiful because it taints the city with purple and it's beautiful.
Yes. Okay. I'll have to look because that's kind of Vancouver. Our entire city with the cherry blossoms, it's just like a very faint pink, but in the entire city, it's so beautiful. It's pretty incredible. We suffer through some rain during winter, but the spring makes up. Well, I appreciate you being on the show and getting to learn more about your involvement with biochar and sustainability. And I guess I'll start, what's first sparked your passion for environmental work? Was there sort of a moment or experience that sort of set you on this path?
Well, before I answer, I would like to say that you mentioned that I am executive director, but we missed both saying that I'm executive director at the International Biochar Initiative, where I've been working since November last year. I just want to say that to give a little context. What first sparked my passion for environmental work? Well, early in my career, when I say early in my career, about 20 years ago, when I started working in development projects, I saw firsthand how environmental degradation directly impacted vulnerable communities in Mexico, because I started in Mexico by just local projects, but it's amazing how that moment of witnessing a rural community struggling with soil infertility, erratic rainfall from back then, and all the difficulties that they were facing that could be mitigated with sustainable land management. And that experience cemented my commitment to finding scalable and science-based solutions to address both ecological and social challenges.
That's amazing. And is that what kind of keeps you motivated and excited to continue the work then?
Yes. This intersection of innovation, impact, for me, sustainability needs to be socially, environmentally, also financially sound in order to make it happen. Otherwise, it's just a good idea. If we're missing one of these 3 points, it's just a good idea, but we're missing something, and something important that cannot be oversight, that cannot be missed. So what truly fuels my motivation is the people, the farmers, the researchers that are working together to make sustainability a reality.
For someone who's never heard of biochar, because for a lot of people like myself, this is a new industry and a new world, even though it's been around for a long time. How would you sort of explain biochar in the simplest way?
Okay. Biochar I'm going to say it again, I'm sorry. Biochar is like a sponge for carbon and nutrients. It locks away carbon from the atmosphere while improving the soil health. It is made from organic waste through this process called pyrolysis. It's a tool that benefits both farmers and the planet. But the easiest way to identify it or to picture it is seeing it like a sponge, because it's super porous and it holds water, nutrients, and it stays there for probably, 75 to 1,000 years.
And so how do they know, I guess like with biochar, you were saying it's a sponge, and how do they know that it captures carbon for that many years? Is that like, is this just because it's been around for so many years?
No, it's science, as I said, because it's been there for many years. But, it is very interesting. And I'm going to take a little moment to go through the process. Biochar piggies back on nature because the carbon storage has been already made through the photosynthesis process. So plants and organic, agri-waste, they absorbed carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And then the plant releases the oxygen and keeps the carbon. So that carbon is there. It's for us to transform it into biochar using these waste residues, or to letting them to rot or to burn them. So the carbon is there, and many, many years of research has proven that it depends on the biomass and the way it's transformed through the pyrolysis process, the amount of carbon that is stored there. But at least 50% of the carbon is, let's say, into biochar, when transformed from biomass into biochar, and put it away in a carbon sink. And that is why it can remain or have a permanence of 100 or 1,000 years.
Or let's say biochar were a person. How would you describe it personally? Like, is it a quiet hero? Is it this powerhouse, a fixer? What would you say it is?
Wow. Biochar is the quiet but powerful problem solver. It doesn't seek attention, but it works tirelessly behind the scenes, restoring soil, sequestering carbon, and enhancing agricultural productivity while removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere.
Which is what we want.
That's what we need.
So I wonder why, that's what we need. So what's a common myth or misunderstanding about biochar that you wish more people knew about?
I would say two things. One, that biochar is just charcoal for soil. While they look similar, biochar is scientifically engineered because it goes through a technological process, an engineering process, to store carbon and improve soil fertility without breaking down quickly like the traditional organic matter. And also that it is not a silver bullet. It is just a tool within many other tools and opportunities there to improve these environmental challenges and climate change that we are facing.
And what has been one of the biggest sort of aha moments in your career, or something that you changed the way you thought about sustainability or biochar?
Its versatility. It is amazing that it is not just an agricultural solution, even though it is well known for that. It's a systems solution because it bridges waste management, climate mitigation, regenerative agriculture, and make it a unique leverage point for sustainability. And remember, for me, sustainability has a social impact, the environmental impact, and the economic impact.
So you've worked on massive projects, like with huge budgets and global impact, but what's one small everyday thing that maybe gives you hope for the future?
Seeing farmers, seeing communities adopting biochar and sharing their success stories. When a smallholder farmer tells me that biochar improved their yields or reduced fertilizers cost or other inputs, that's where the real impact starts, because again, it impacts the other whole to social life, environmental, and economic life.
And where you are in Mexico City, is there a biochar processing plant in Mexico City, or is it outside of the big city?
Now that you mention it, there's a biochar plant in Mexico City that belongs to the government, but the focus is different because they aim to solve the problem of the organic waste from the municipality. And when talking about this effort of smallholder farmers, it's different. I had the opportunity of listening to a story of a Colombian coffee grower, and she was telling me, it was really touching, her story, because she was telling me that her finca, her father wanted to get rid of it because the land was so degraded. The coffee trees and the cocoa trees were done. There were no remediation for them. As a serendipity and as an accident, she discovered biochar by burning some of the residues, but burning them in a good way, in the way that it is recommended for open fire biochar production. So she just threw the biochar and started seeing different. At that time, she didn't know it was biochar. She just thought it was ashes and charcoal, but she started seeing a difference. And she brought someone in, a researcher from a Colombian university, and he said, "What did you do?" And she said, "Well, I just did this." And they started seeing the changes, and all trees, all trees that were not supposed to be productive anymore started to produce again, not at a top rate, but they were supposed to be dead, no longer productive, and they started producing again. So when I heard her story, I said, she's not selling carbon credits, she's not selling biochar, she's just using it on her own and taking data on her own and keeping track because she saw a result. And, when I heard that story, I said, it works. So let's try to introduce this technology to more and more farmers to educate them on the benefits of using biochar and setting up on-field experiments so they can also trust the process because, farmers are super reluctant to try new technologies, and I don't blame them. It's their way of living. So if we can prove with different on-field experiments that this works and share stories like Angela's or many others, that would be fantastic.
It is kind of, I've heard so many stories like that, which is really amazing. I think that's the whole point of me starting this, so people kind of learn more about it as well as I'm learning. So I think what's something people don't realize about the human side of sustainability, like beyond the science and the policies, is there not necessarily advice, but it may be a little piece of your own knowledge in that regard?
Well, it requires trust and long-term collaboration. It takes a village to set up these projects and to implement them because you need the government involved, you need science involved, you need academia, you need the farmers, extensionists, you need the biochar producers, and all the logistics involved. And so it takes a village, but it requires trust, long-term collaboration, and science and technology to provide and prove the solutions. So these relationships, along with the community engagement, I do believe they're like the recipe for success. You cannot work in silos to do this or to do that and expect to be successful if you're not involved in the whole ecosystem in that local project or in a determined geography.
And do you find farmers in Mexico, we were talking about the woman in Colombia, do you find farmers in Mexico being a little more open-minded now to biochar since if they've seen more results?
No. It takes time. But what I have seen, it's more small biochar producers working with smallholder farmers, and training them with patience and using distillates or contiki, using their own waste, producing the biochar and helping them to apply the biochar in their fields. So little by little, they see the results, but, small steps, baby steps from bottom to top. But that is what I have been seeing for, the past 2 years here in Mexico. And I do believe in other geographies, wide adoption of biochar is not there yet. There's not a market of biochar for the physical biochar yet. It's a work in progress. But I think that working together, we can do that. We can achieve that.
So if you could wave a magic wand and instantly fix one environmental challenge, what would it be and why?
The disconnect between climate action and financing, so many effective solutions, as I said, biochar is just one of them, exist. but scaling them requires financial mechanisms that truly support sustainability rather just than rewarding short-term gains. Like we understand that today, many of the environmental solutions, long-term environmental solutions, are driven by the carbon credits, which are amazing because everybody will benefit because, as someone explained me, carbon credits once said, no matter where you pollute, we all live here. No matter where you pollute, it affects us all. No matter where you remove carbon from the atmosphere, it benefits us all. But again, it's just one of the tools, and carbon credits is only a vehicle to achieve a long-term objective, which is reducing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and keeping that temperature at a range that will prevail, that will help us to prevail life on Earth as we know it, right?
So while you're busy being, in the biochar sustainability environmental world, is there something outside of work that keeps you balanced and recharged, kind of away from your work life?
Yes, I like spending time in nature. I like hiking. I'm not a professional hiker, but I do enjoy, walks in nature. And for me, nature, living in Mexico City, it's a park, right? But when I have the opportunity of going to a mountain or seeing a lake or something like that, it's fantastic because it gives me the opportunity to truly disconnect from the city sounds and enjoy the nature and the silence of nature. I like being with my dogs, and I love watching TV and watching TikTok. That's my guilty pleasure.
Everyone has a guilty pleasure. I feel like TikTok is probably one of those. Yes. I love it. That's fantastic. And if you had to describe your dream vision for the future of biochar, what would it be?
Mainstream, scalable, and transformational.
And is in Mexico City, just like staying on Mexico, because I'm in Canada. So in Canada, there's a couple different places I know of biochar, but in Mexico, are they trying to keep the biochar in Mexico? Or are you trying to import certain things? I'm just wondering if biochar is beneficial to stay in its own country, or is it, a worldwide thing that kind of like oil and gas and things like that?
Well, biochar, it's a local solution with a global impact. And I'm saying this because by setting up a biochar production, rather artisanal or industrial, you are solving, or the people who are doing that are solving a local problem, which usually comes to waste management, because that could be an environmental liability. So it's local, since the majority of biochar productions aim to be net zero or net negative. So it doesn't make sense to export biochar or to import biochar because you're trying to have the impact in that region or in that community where you're setting up the project. So biochar should not longer be this niche climate tool, because it has the potential to be widely adopted, but at a local level, right? It's a high impact solution for soil restoration, carbon removal, and circular economy initiatives. So that is why it is so important that there are local projects, with a radius no longer than 200 kilometers around, to gather the biomass, to process it, and to give the biochar back to the farmers or to other industries that are there. Because, as I said, it's not only for soil restoration or agriculture, it can also be used in cement industry, steel, or asphalt or concrete companies, to name a few.
Wow, I didn't actually know that. That's pretty amazing. I did read an article that they were putting biochar in chicken coops, like in the feed. So I'm wondering, that's something new for me as well.
Yeah, it can be used for animal bedding, for animal feeding. It could be used to filter wastewater treatment. Yeah, wastewater, to treat wastewater. And also, in some cases, in some even nichier uses, it can be used for sport goods or for pharmaceutical purposes, or, special plastics. We're experimenting. We are building the industry. We are not there yet. Biochar is not there at the point of being a steady supplier for those industries, but we are making progress by researching, by doing some lab research and trying to take that experiments or research from the lab to the real life to have proof that it works in those industries as well.
Is there anything else you want to, on an end note for the audience, to let them know about biochar, or something that's kind of a unique thing on your side of the world?
Well, just thank you for the opportunity of sharing what is biochar, the basics of what is biochar, and probably open the appetite for people to go online and search more about biochar. They can go to the International Biochar Initiative, where we have lots of resources. When I say lots of resources, by the International Biochar Initiative, IBI, it's going to be 20 years the next year. So imagine all the resources, all the research, online courses, and different offering of education and webinars. So people can, as you said, as you use the word, I hope that we have sparked people curiosity and appetite to learn more about biochar.
Well, I wanted to thank you so much for taking the time out of your day in beautiful Mexico City and letting us dive a little bit deeper into biochar on your side of the world. For the audience that's listening, thank you so much, and stay tuned, and we'll have a new episode soon.